From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South, and I am Soy Negre. President Nicolas Maduro has announced that Venezuela's cryptocurrency, the Petro, began operating globally on Monday. The digital currency is part of Venezuela's economic recovery and prosperity plan. The launch of the cryptocurrency seeks to capture foreign investment and will be used as an instrument of payment in the acquisition of goods and services. It is an important tool in the fight against the economic blockade. Venezuelans will also be able to use the Petro to protect their savings.
Beginning on November 5th, the Petro will go on sale on the Venezuelan public. You can buy it in sovereign bolivars and can save with a Petro certificate, which is backed in the Venezuelan oil. The Petro has a material certification and is backed and supported by Venezuelan oil, but also by law and by decree. I have incorporated in the white paper of the Petro the formula of the establishment of its value with respect to gold, diamonds, iron and aluminium. So, our Petro is born armored, with oil, wealth and meaning wealth. I proceed to sign the first copy of the white paper.
The president also ordered that the new Petro cryptocurrency be used for all future sales of Venezuelan oil and its derivatives. He invited Venezuelan business partners around the world to abide by this measure. Maduro also said that the sale of international airline tickets, departure taxes at airports, payment for hotels, tourist arrivals, activities, and the sale of properties must be carried out in petros as a way to promote and strengthen the use of the cryptocurrency. The Bolivarian government continues repatriating thousands of Venezuelans who decided to leave their country in search of better opportunities, but never found them. In Lima, Peru, the Galindez Soto family are just one of so many of these stories. What they earn as informal vendors is barely enough to pay for a basic room where they sleep on mattresses on the floor. They stretch their money to feed their 2 children. In the family's 11 months in Peru, they never found the country of opportunities that news and social networks painted.
Here we have to get the money. We have to work until our bodies give out, because the end of the month comes near, and we have to pay. In Venezuela, it was our own home, where we lived, our own space, and we are completely at ease there.
With the same luggage that they arrived with, they pack and leave for home. Kenny and Rebecca are like thousands of Venezuelan families who left their country to seek better opportunities, but instead joined an already long line of unemployed informal workers and people struggling to get by. Now they head home to Venezuela, taking advantage of the repatriation plan.
If I could go back in time, I would not have left Venezuela. Not for Peru, nor Ecuador, nor Colombia, anywhere else. I would have stayed in Venezuela fighting for my country, to move forward.
Social and political movements in Caracas have organized a demonstration in support of Palestine and to reject the international intervention in Venezuela. Our correspondent has a story.
Plaza Bolívar in Caracas was the stage where Palestinians and Venezuelans gathered to reject the actions against the sovereignty of Venezuela promoted by the White House and its allies.
The Palestinian struggle has always been supported by Latin America, especially by Venezuela. We have shown our support for the people's fight against the world's aggressors.
Venezuela has maintained its support for the Palestinian people. The union of both nations was celebrated by young Palestinians that live in the South American nation.
We thank Venezuelans and President Nicolas Maduro for opening their doors. This is now our second country.
They say Venezuela is their second motherland. Hamse is one of the more than 1,000 young students who received a scholarship from the government to study medicine. He highlighted youth must defend itself from the international right wing.
As medicine students, we can provide healthcare where it still doesn't exist to the poor countries. Education is a right for everyone, We, as Palestinians in Venezuela, are able to defend our rights and our country. We can protest the aggressions against our country.
They also thank the support of many governments at the 33rd United Nations General Assembly. Despite the situation, they continue to express joy and pride for their culture.
This Tuesday is the 50th anniversary of the Tlatelolco massacre in Mexico. On Monday night, people gathered in Mexico City to commemorate the event with a reenactment. On October 2nd, 1968, an unknown number of students and civilian protesters were killed by the police, 2 days before Mexico's first Olympic Games. The memorial featured green flares and presentations by student leaders, mixed with the sound of gunfire.
Felix has returned here to the Plaza de las Tres Culturas in Mexico City, almost 50 years from the event that changed his life and the entire nation as well, the so-called Night of Tlatelolco. Here the state repressed with violence the student movement of which he was member of, something that was engraved in history.
People know that here at Tlatelolco, a crime against humanity was committed. A crime of genocide remains unpunished.
The violent event, in which armed and paramilitary forces participated under the president's commands, left an undetermined number of dead people, but also marked the future of social and political movements in the country, which are prepared today to pay tribute to the victims of the massacre.
The commemorations organized by student movements are also protests that follow the slogan, "The victims of 1968 are remembered."
Throughout the city, more than 100 events are planned to remember this historical date. This exhibition used images which during those years were not able to be published because of the government's censorship to explain the student movement.
We are helping other people to understand why the movement was so revolutionary. They really tried to change things. We are remembering the 100 glorious days, 3 months of struggle and resistance.
President-elected Andrés Manuel López Obrador recognized the importance of the anniversary and made a commitment to obtain peace.
Here, in this historical plaza, La Plaza de las Tres Culturas, we make the commitment to never use the army again to repress the people of Mexico.
During the 50th anniversary of Tlatelolco massacre, several social organizations will carry out a demonstration to the Zócalo Square chanting, "October 2nd will never be forgotten."
We'll take a short break now. More news in a minute.
The ruling world order has always subjugated the masses. But who are the actors behind every move? What are their real interests? We analyze every move on Critical Move. Weekdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. The IMF has approved a $290 million extended fund facility for Barbados. The four-year arrangement will allow for an immediate payment of about $49 million. The remainder will only be released after the successful completion of 7 semi-annual reviews. The program aims to help improve economic growth. The new government, which took office in May 2018, inherited a debt of more than $7 billion. Meanwhile, St. Lucia aims to improve its health coverage with a World Bank loan. The bank has approved a $20 million credit from the International Development Association. The project seeks to ensure that people on the island are registered to the National Health Scheme. It also ensures that at least 60% of diabetic and hypertensive patients over 18 are treated according to national rules. To Trinidad and Tobago now, where the Finance Minister, Colum Imbert, has ruled out a $7 billion national budget. With immediate effect, the cost of super gasoline will increase by $1 per litre. Imbert also announced an increase in public servant pensions. The budget comes as the state-owned oil company Petro closes its refinery.
In order to minimize the overall negative effects of this inevitable decision to get out of refining, the board of Petro and the Oilfield Workers Trade Union have begun the process for ensuring that the employees of Petro are provided with transitional finance for their reintegration into the national economy. The terminated permanent, temporary and casual employees of Petro will be provided with attractive termination packages. Early estimates put this termination payment at approximately $2.6 billion.
French President Emmanuel Macron has received criticism from France's far right over a photograph during his visit to the Caribbean. The photo shows Macron posing with two young men, one of whom is making a rude gesture. The far-right leader Marine Le Pen took to Twitter saying that France does not deserve this. The photo was taken while Macron was visiting the island of Saint Martin a year after the devastation of Hurricane Irma. The Brazilian Workers' Party candidate Fernando Haddad visited the former president, Luiz Ignacio Lula da Silva, in prison on Monday. Lula has been in jail since April, facing a 12-year conviction that made him ineligible to run for president. With just 5 days to go until the election, the war of the polls is heating up. Last week, several polls showed Haddad gaining ground on the far-right candidate, Jair Bolsonaro. This Tuesday, the latest poll from Ibope shows Bolsonaro raising to 31% against 21% for Haddad. Our correspondent in Brazil, Andrew Vieira, has more.
We continue to follow the final stretch of the presidential campaigns here in Brazil. On October 7, Brazilians will not only elect the president, but also governors and Congress members. The candidate for the Workers' Party, Fernando Haddad, arrived to Rio de Janeiro this morning. Throughout the day, he will be participating in different events across the city. According to recent polls, Fernando Haddad is now in second place. As such, polling agencies agree that during a runoff election, Haddad will likely beat frontrunner Jair Bolsonaro. Social movements have also intensified their campaigns in the streets, supporting Fernando Haddad. Let's remember that he is the candidate replacing former President Luiz Ignacio Lula da Silva.
After well over 100 hours of talks between unions and the government of Costa Rica, there's still no solution on how to end the strike.
As negotiations with the government have proven to be unsuccessful, thousands of union members have decided to continue their strike, which has now entered its fourth week.
We haven't agreed on anything. We were working on a document to reach consensus, but in the end, we rejected every proposal by the government.
Despite hours of negotiations, talks broke down as the government continues to progress their economic reforms through the Legislative Assembly. A clear sign that what workers want doesn't matter.
Our position is that the strike will continue. People must continue taking to the streets across the country. We can feel rejection to this economic reform growing.
The proposed economic reform is made up of 4 laws, one of which will replace sales tax with value-added tax, or VAT.
This economic reform hurts the people. It's seriously hurting the prices of basic goods and medicine.
Workers continue to protest and raise awareness. So far, this is the longest strike in the country's recent history.
Politicians fail to understand that they represent the people. They do not serve the rich. They must listen to the majority, to the workers and the vulnerable sectors of society.
Workers are demanding the economic reform be scrapped and replaced with a new one.
We will sit down and talk once the reform is scrapped. It makes no sense to move forward if they continue pushing this reform.
The government and unions want to resolve the situation, but until that happens, the strike will continue.
In Ecuador, a wildfire that had been raging since Saturday 10 kilometers southwest of Quito was finally put out early Tuesday morning. The fire reportedly burned over 600 hectares of grassland. No casualties were reported, and over 120 firefighters and a helicopter were deployed to fight the blaze. Authorities are still investigating the cause of the fire, but they believe it could have been caused by local farmers or hunters.
There's a speculation
that rabbit hunters start the fire, trying to smoke out the animals from their burrows. There is a very reckless behavior because we have to understand that the loss of wildlife is irreplaceable.
The G20's Gender Equality Summit, known as the W20, has kicked off in Argentina. Its main focus is women's empowerment and how to get more female representation in institutions across the globe. From Tuesday, 65 delegates will discuss these and other issues related to women for 3 days. And after a 36-hour national strike, public sector workers in Argentina have now set up camp outside Parliament to protest against the proposed budget for 2019.
The economic situation in Argentina is hitting state employees more and more. They are one of the groups most affected, with hundreds of layoffs. To express their rejection, they are protesting in front of the parliament against the proposed budget law, which will be under debate in the coming days.
It is the same fear people felt in the 90s, in 2001, and now again in 2018. It is a budget set by the International Monetary Fund with insane infernal cuts that all us Argentinian workers are going to pay for.
This year we only have a 6% pay rise, while it's estimated that inflation will be more than 54% by the end of 2018.
Mauricio Macri is not interested in workers. He's only interested in the companies, and those companies want to control the state.
They have set up camp against the IMF budget with the slogan, "For work, production, and sovereignty." These public sector workers are beginning a new phase of their struggle against the government and its agreement with the International Monetary Fund. They say the government has closed the door on talks and wants to confront the trade unions.
The payment of the foreign debt and the interest has increased. This proposed budget includes 25% devoted entirely to servicing the debt created by Mauricio Macri's government.
Union leaders have presented a report with their main criticisms of the budget bill sent to Congress by the government. They say the government treats public sector layoffs as just another variable in its austerity plans.
They are not going to touch their friends' pockets. Instead, they touch the pockets of workers and pensioners. A new reform is on the way of these benefits that have existed for decades. They want to wipe out our history and the welfare of the Argentinian people.
This occupation and protest by state workers comes as new increases in the prices of fuel and services are introduced. It's set to continue all week with debates, teach-ins, artistic shows, and the presentation of a document which criticizes the agreement with the International Monetary Fund.
Time for the second break of this newscast. World News is next.
With developing events being presented through analysis. Our coverage transcends borders. With renowned journalist Walter Martinez.
Salud amigos, tripulantes de nuestra querida, contaminada y única nave espacial.
Dossier. Weekdays. Only on Telesur.
Y ponga usted las cámaras, señor director.
Welcome back. The death toll in Indonesia after Friday's earthquake and tsunami has reached at least 1,200. According to authorities, 1,700 homes were destroyed. Energy and communication systems are still down, so desperate residents resolved to loot gasoline to reach villages yet to receive aid. In one of the hardest hit areas, the city of Palu, citizens are trying to recover their belongings, while rescue teams continue to look for survivors in the northern region of the country.
Even if I found my wife dead, I would accept it. But yesterday, when she came with her friend and she got off the motorbike, it was euphoria. Everyone was crying. Our relatives broke into tears. They came to hug her. Dewi, thank God. One of my relatives took her picture down from the wall because she is still alive.
Employees of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency in Gaza have called for a strike against recent job cuts. UNRWA facilities were closed down as part of the protests. On Monday, the agency also withdrew some of its international staff from the Gaza Strip, saying it was concerned for their safety. The UNRWA operations ran into difficulties after the United States cut $200 million worth of funding last month. The agency has been a lifeline for millions of Palestinian refugees since it was set up in 1949. The Catalan Parliament has rejected suspending former President Carles Puigdemont and 5 other lawmakers from public office. The 6 pro-independence officials were stripped of public office by the Spanish Supreme Court in July. Now the Catalan Parliament has said they can maintain their seats but must delegate their voting rights to other members of the Parliament. All 6 officials are either in jail or have fled the country. Germany may relax its immigration policy to attract skilled workers from outside the European Union. The government will soon debate proposals to address the country's worker shortage. Under new rules, asylum seekers might get to stay if they can gain employment and demonstrate that they have integrated into German society. Job seekers from outside the European Union will be able to come for 6 months to try and find work on the condition that they speak German. A woman accused of posing as a victim of the November 2015 attacks in Paris has gone on trial. Posing as a survivor of the attacks that left 130 dead, Alexandra D. is under trial in the Paris Criminal Court for fraud and false testimony. She could face up to 18 months in jail. The 32-year-old woman received benefits worth of about $23,000 after she claimed to have been shot in the elbow. 15 fake victims have been charged with attempted fraud since the attacks in 2015.
When an attack has just occurred and the association assists a victim, the association does not investigate them. It would be absolutely dreadful and unbearable for victims who have already been subjected to a violent attack, placed into a world that is not their own, a world of violence, and furthermore be themselves subject to suspicion by the association.
The government of Cameroon has imposed a 48-hour curfew on the English-speaking regions of the country. This is a day before the one-year anniversary of a symbolic declaration of independence by militant separatists. According to a government decree, public gatherings and movement between regions in the country have been banned for 48 hours. In October 2017, radical Anglophone leaders declared a Republic of Ambazonia in the regions that were first incorporated into Cameroon back in 1961. And a man accused of raping a 6-year-old child has appeared in a South African magistrate court. 20-year-old Nicholas Nanau is facing charges of rape, possession of drugs, and assault with the intent to cause grievous bodily harm. He allegedly raped the 6-year-old in the toilets of a restaurant in Pretoria 2 weeks ago. Various political parties and civic organizations protested outside court, calling for a strong sentence.
Rapists must rot in jail!
Rapist must rot in jail. As Jiggy today, he is not coming out of here. We want justice, and we want justice now. We want harsh sentences for rapists. South Africa must implement their laws with venom and speed.
A dozen activists performing a sit-in against U.S. Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh have been arrested in Washington. They were detained outside the Eisenhower Executive Office building after they refused to leave. Kavanaugh's nomination is under threat after being accused of sexual assault. Having a rough day? Thai companies say bringing your puppy to work might be the ideal solution. The dog-friendly policy has become increasingly trendy among companies in Thailand that keep irregular office hours, offering a fluffy solution to workers hounded by stress. Some companies in Bangkok have up to 20 pet dogs roaming around desks. Several studies describe the positive impact of having man's best friend at work, but also warn about possible health hazards like allergies. We still need that policy here. We've come to the end of this news brief. For these and many other stories, you can find them on our website at talisiertv.net/English. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for Talisir English. I'm Suni Gray. Thank you for watching.